down to Biscayne.
Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing rubber frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the flow playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, inspire, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Welcome into another edition of 5 on the Floor Live. We come to you directly following the Miami Heat's exciting 126-120 victory over the Utah Jazz at home. It looked like it could get dicey at times, but ultimately they got it done with some unbelievable individual efforts. We're going to get into that. Today's floor plan with me, Eternal Bast, as well as Sean Rochester. So you'll get the coach's perspective as well as the our playback extraordinaire as well. The rest of the crew is either covering the game or off. Let's just initial feelings. And this was a crazy game. We're just leaving playback, so still gathering thoughts on this. But Eternal, I'm going to come to you on getting a fresh start to this homestand, Jimmy's efforts, the team getting this victory. Your thoughts coming off of what was a come from behind effort at times also. Just your thoughts.
I'm glad that you started it there. Because when they came out in the first quarter, guys, not really as sharp as they could be, and kind of, went into halftime, which, according to what was said by Eric Reed, the Jazz leading at halftime this season was 20-0. So they got their first loss after leading at halftime, and a lot of that happened in the third quarter after, Bam got hurt. Which it was kind of starting a little bit, but after Bam got hurt, you saw some very spirited defense, starting with one Terry Rozier creating a steal right there at the half court, coming down, getting a layup, and then you just saw some very spirited defense from Terry, Duncan, Nico, and Jimmy in that third quarter. And man, they played just inspiring ball on both ends. After that, Jimmy had an 18-point third quarter. So it was a really great effort as they continue to pick up on along with the game.
Kind of as we cycle in on the defense, Sean, what did you see differently from this team first half to second half that kind of turned up? They were able to get stops down the stretch. This was a hotly contested game. Shout out to Keontae George. That dude is awesome. I want to make sure that we note that early in this show that he is a ascending young player. But what did you see from them specifically on the defensive end with Bam Adebayo out for a stretch of the game, but then he was able to come back. Our hearts dropped, and then obviously he was okay. But what did you see on the defensive end for them to get this victory?
Yeah, the obvious thing really throughout the game was second chance points. Like, we got destroyed on the offensive glass. 36% of their misses went back to them, which is unacceptable. 13 total offensive rebounds, looking for a number there. It just gave them too many opportunities, and they're a big team. If you think about Markkanen, you think about Taylor Hendricks, and then John Collins, their backcourt is small. And Keontae George is, I think, 6'4", so he's a little bit bigger guard. But those aren't the guys that were hurting us. It was those three guys I mentioned before. That was giving them too many extra chances. And I really think the problem that persisted but got better as the game went into the second half was, I would say, like our shell defense. And if anybody's ever played high school basketball, shell defense, right?
Yeah.
We gave up so many damn shots at the paint that it wasn't because they dumped it down inside. Looking at cleaning the glass, 44% of their shots came within 4 feet of the rim.
Yeah.
Think about that. 44% of their shots came within 4 feet of the rim. Like, we know the Heat are an elite team in terms of deterring you from getting to the rim. Not so great at blocking shots once you get there, but they're not going to let you get to that point. And so they got there and they got free throws. And then they sprayed out to threes, which, you got to connect those two things too. But second half, I'm sure we'll get to it. The pressure turned up and we started getting turnovers against a team that does like to turn the ball over.
You know what? Let's not even tap dance around the topic because we were going to go straight into the Rocky Sports Gamer of the Night.
And now on 5 on the Floor, it's time for the Gamer of the Night, sponsored by Rock Esports Center, the place to eat, drink, and play all day. Host your next birthday party with them. Located at 15305 South Dixie Highway in Palmetto Bay. They've got a 5,500 square foot state-of-the-art center equipped with all the high-end power. Play all-day passes available for just $25, but if you mention 5 reasons, it's just $20. So mention 5 reasons or 5 RSN. You get to play all day for $20. And now, the Gamer of the Night.
So the Gamer of the Night is Nikola Jović. No, I'm joking. Only because Eternal's on the show did I try to even sneak that in here. Jimmy Buckets. I'm coming to you, Eternal, though. Tell us the story of how Jimmy Butler got to this monster performance on such efficiency.
Let me just read this line to y'all. Jimmy had 37 points, 3 rebounds, 7 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, 3 of 3 from 3, 10 of 11 from the free throw line, 12 of 19 overall, 2 turnovers, and only 1 foul. That's it. That's it. That is literally MVP. Masterclass. Jimmy, if anybody of y'all that watch playback with us, please come join us on playback. Jimmy is one of the most infuriating players I've ever watched in long history of watching basketball. But it's just because of how skilled he is on both ends of the floor and how the way that he can take over a game. It doesn't require a lot of energy out of Jimmy to get performances like these, and it's there. Even with the change up of his jump shooting behind the 3-point line, there was a corner 3 that he took that he got a pass from Caleb, came in, showing feet set under his hips, catches it in rhythm, releases. He's just such an exciting player. But he gave them exactly what they needed, gave them 18 points in the third quarter again. And then the last 2 shots of the fourth to kind of close the door came from Jimmy. Step back, mid-range shot, late shot clock shot coming from the wing, coming down from above the break, breaking the guy down, getting the and one at the rim. Jimmy Butler is your player.
It's his time. I mean, that's where I'm coming to you, Sean. I'd like to hear just your overall thoughts on Jimmy Butler, but also just as a fan who's watched so many Heat stars operate, this idea that you're going to coast and then turn it on. I'm interested for also your perspective on that journey with a top player, because that's a little different for us, right? I think we're used to people waiting for the playoffs, but this seems so targeted towards a specific point in time. So just interested your Jimmy Butler hot takes.
Yeah, how many times have we been on here, Greg, talking about Jimmy being Jimmy? And he's doing it now, right? We were upset about it earlier. When is Jimmy going to be Jimmy? And now we're getting it almost on a night-to-night basis. And it's no coincidence that it coincides with the Heat playing better basketball since the All-Star break, since that film session is what we keep pointing back to. Whatever magic happened in that room. But Jimmy, it can be frustrating. I get it. Eternal and I spoke, through Twitter during the game, right? There was a pitch ahead from Terry, right? Or was it from Jaime?
No, it was Terry, right under the basket.
Pitch ahead, right under the basket. Jimmy ball fakes or shot fakes to get the guy up in the air. Probably could have laid it in if he doesn't shot fake. Gets the guy up in the air. Now you have a contested shot. Lost that opportunity to make a layup. Kicks it out to Caleb, which we'll get to this later. I'm sorry, Caleb Martin, when he rises to fire from outside, I will not be convinced that he's making that shot. I know that he made 4 of 6 tonight.
A lot of bailout threes. A lot of bailout threes.
I will never be convinced that damn flat shot is going in.
No.
And I said to Eternal, I was like, what the hell is that shot? That is the frustrating Jimmy. But then you get that, like Eternal said, you drive baseline, step back. Taylor Hendricks plays perfect defense, contestant, knockdown. Next time down in transition, left-hand drive, lowers his right shoulder, gets contact, finishes with his right, and one. He just knows how to do it. And they're like, Greg, what you were saying, there's so few players that can control the game like that. Jimmy's one of them. That's all you can say.
It is pretty incredible. I don't want to also diminish what some other guys did. Let's go through them a little bit. Eternal. I thought Terry Rozier had a really interesting game, man. Like, for him to continue to navigate his role on the team, and people have nitpicked the way that he's played. I thought he's ultimately kind of figuring out his way, and should be given a little bit more grace than maybe some. And maybe I'm just tapped into the Twitter space a little bit too closely. But what did you see from Terry Rozier tonight that jumped out at you most? Because I thought he was a big part of what led the team to a victory.
If anything, Greg, Sean, you know what I saw? I didn't get a chance to hop on yesterday, so I'll get this takeoff. You know what we saw in the 9-3 stretch, right? You saw what hopefully you can see in the playoffs. When things get muddy, when the stakes rise, what happened? Bam got hurt. And it's like, oh no, we don't know how long Bam is going to go out, right? Like, we all know.
That's very playoffs, yes.
We all know what it is with this team. Like, guys can go down, right? And who was the player that turned it on immediately? It was Terry. And he turned it on a defensive end, got a steal, got down, laid it up, and you just kept seeing that coming at you energy that kind of sparked the rest of them. And I think we've seen that throughout this week. You know, it didn't result in a win in Denver. But, you know, Sean, one of the bold predictions I made on playback before the game was that Terry would have an efficient game, and he did. He had a very efficient game. Terry gave you, excuse me while I try to pull this up. Terry gave you 14 points, 2 rebounds, 8 assists.
Yep. 1
steal, 5 of 9 shooting from the floor. I mean, that's very, very efficient. So he, you know, almost gave you a double-double. You know, got some really good pick and roll plays with Bam. Even had a good play a couple of times with Jimmy. Probably would have had more assists, Sean, if Jimmy doesn't pass up shots. But I think, man, it's a lot to be, you know, hopeful for when it comes to Terry in regards to what you can see on the rest of the season and, you know, into the playoffs.
He had over 5.5. That's all that matters for Terry Rozier.
Right.
For my sakes.
What do you think, Sean, of his continued, because this is taking some time, I think, for Bam to understand the speed of Terry. What do you make of that particular pairing so far, the Bam Adebayo Terry Rozier pairing, which is so important, you know, when you talk about a big and a point guard? I think that Bam is still trying to, I guess, come to grips with playing with a player that can accelerate at this rate over and over, and he doesn't necessarily slow down. What have you seen that you like or dislike about that pairing so far?
You know, I think when you're talking about transition offense, we know Bam is an excellent athlete. One of the best in terms of big men in the league and his ability to get up and down the floor. Obviously, the most important thing, first of all, is to rebound the ball defensively. And if we can do that as a team, you can get Bam to get out and run. And Greg, you know, you remember Zoe rim running. Like, that's what we did. You know, Zoe was such a great athlete. Yep. Bam doesn't necessarily do that, partially because they rely on him to rebound so much, and it's a different game now. But I think with, you know, Terry, I'm sure we'll touch on Nico a little bit. The difference in how they're playing in terms of transition, especially when Nico is out there and now that they have Terry, I think if you can rebound Bam can get out there and run. And you see it with Jimmy too. Not that I misspoke, but I mean, Jimmy also, we talked about that play. He gets out there and rim runs a little bit too. So I think there's opportunities. Terry just plays with a different pace, even in the half court. His ability to dribble, and sometimes he dribbles the ball quite a bit, which is different than some of the players that we have on the perimeter. But it can also be a good thing. He can get through gaps that other guys can get to the rim that other guys can't. So I like it. It's going to take time, but I definitely enjoy the experience so far, even though it has been up and down.
Let's go to the Insurance by Lynette play of the night.
And now it's time for the Insurance by Lynette play of the night, sponsored by insurancebylynette.com and A Aggressive Insurance Agency. You can reach out to our friend Lynette at 954-581 954-8800. That's 954-581-8800 or insurancebylinet.com. That's insurancebylinet.com with 2 N's and 2 T's. Your best play for auto insurance, homeowners insurance, condo insurance, life insurance, or a retirement program. Reach out to Lynette at insurancebylinet.com.
So where are we going, y'all? Eternal, I'm going to lean on you because you were on playback throughout the whole game. Give us the play of the night.
Oh, my God. Terry Rozier. Sean just talked about it again, the transition. Terry Rozier to Nikola Jović. Terry was coming up the left side of the court, throws a hit-ahead pass, alley-oop to Nico. It's a little long. Nico catches it, throws it to Terry in the corner. Terry for 3. That's your play of the night, man. And again, it was a big moment because it was during the run in the third quarter that got the Heat the lead when Bam was out.
Sean, you think Nico is settling into this starter role where he maybe won't get the minutes that everyone would want him to get? And I know that fouls played a role today, but you think he's settling into that role where he starts but maybe doesn't finish a ton?
So, yes, I think it's based on how he plays. And we talked about this on the show yesterday about how it's performance based. And I don't think he played poorly. I mean, if you look at his box score, 8, 3, and 4 in what about 17 minutes, I would guess 19 minutes. I think, and then he was a +7, even though, single game plus minus is a little bit interesting to use. What I think is this, and this is just my perception of watching him play tonight. When he plays loose, and I know it's hard to get in the head of him, right? Because we're just making our observation. When he plays loose, he's at his best. There were times tonight where I felt like he appeared to be thinking too much. Like you catch your open, he knocked down early threes, and he fakes himself into defense. If you're open, shoot it. If you're out there, play loose. If you're not out there, then there's a reason you're not out there, right? Maybe you're bad defensively. Maybe you're not taking care of the basketball. But if Spo puts you out there, he's got to play to his ability, have confidence in what he does. And if he does that, I think he can earn more minutes. But I just felt like tonight, in Eternal or Greg, you can counter this, agree, disagree. That was just something that stood out to me, is that I felt like at times he was overthinking, and that's never a good thing when you're on the basketball floor.
How did the guys around him, Eternal, help him pull out of a stretch like that with a young player? I think it's interesting. It's the guys around him, I think, that need to probably notice that to some degree. I know it's just easy to just hone in on him and what can he do differently. But what's your perspective on Jovic's game tonight? We'll hone in on the micro, but also macro as him as the starter who maybe doesn't do a ton of finishing.
One, I think that Nico played some really, really good defense tonight, but I also think he's had, a strong stretch of games of playing, good one-on-one defense and also team defense. There are times, Sean, where he kind of does make a little young guy mistake. He's learned how to play more with his length and use his arm, just go straight up. There was one particular time, and that, I know that's nitpicking, but there was one particular time where he did get up in the air where he could have just stayed down. But other than that, I think defensively you are seeing way more consistency from him, where they're trusting him on and things of that nature, which is definitely good for him. As far as the offensive part, I think it's still him trying to learn how to be really comfortable off ball, right, in the action of the play. You get what I'm saying, Sean? Sometimes you may be thinking with the own ball part of you, oh, this is what I would have done with the ball in my hands. But I do think there are times he does do a great job of relocating. Earlier in the game, he did a really great job of seeing what the defense was doing, and he relocated himself to get a ball. To catch the ball and hit the shot. And like Sean said, there are going to be times he does overthink. And you just want him to play within the floor of the game. And I think him being on the floor with those particular guys in Terry, Duncan, Jimmy, and Bam, I do think that particular group definitely helps him not overthink, because they'll kind of keep things moving if they're all playing off of each other, which we did see in the third quarter.
And to be fair, it's not a negative thing. He's 20 years old. It's part of the process. Like, as long as he's contributing to positive things and he's taking maybe 2 steps forward, 1 step back at times, you roll with it because the long-term dividends are going to pay off, in theory. So I just think, you live with it, but you want to keep seeing that progress. And I think so far you're seeing the progress. If you compared November until now, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that.
The fact that he's carved out a role for himself on this team so close to the playoffs is so positive. I think that we need to remember like where we came from with this kid. Like, he was in Sioux Falls not too long ago, and now that he's whatever role that is, the fact that he's carved it out is huge. Let's go because I know we're getting some questions about the injuries with Tyler Hero, when he's going to be back and such. So let's go to our Eric Rubenstein injury report.
And now it's time for the official 5 on the Floor injury report, sponsored by our friend Eric Rubenstein, the personal injury attorney. Born and raised in Lauderdale, Florida, lives in Miami, went to St. Thomas. He's a South Florida guy and a huge Miami Heat fan. But the important thing is he can help you get your money that you deserve when something happens to you. So reach out to our guy, Eric Rubenstein. Again, ericrubenstein.com, or ask about me, I got you, on Instagram. And now, the injury report.
So it appears as if we should continue to have Josh Richardson flagged as out. I don't know when Kevin Love will be back, but he didn't play again tonight. There were some interesting DMP and Tyler Hero, obviously, I think is out. And the fact that we are now acknowledging that this is a foot is something that I think we should continue to watch. If any of y'all disagree, feel free to chime in there. So that's really wrapping it up. Injury report. I thought it was interesting. DeLon Wright got no minutes tonight. Sean, what was your thought process on that, specifically when you see guys down and then DeLon not getting any minutes when a player like Keontae George is going off like crazy in 45 minutes on the other side?
Yeah, don't forget about Caleb Martin. Appeared to have some sort of injury to his mouth, maybe a tooth.
Good call. Gosh, I forgot that in the midst of everything he went out. You're right.
Donut Dan held us accountable there. I can't find anything so far from Brady or anyone at the arena, so I'm sure that'll be coming out. But you wouldn't think that's something that you would miss a game for. And I think the next game is Detroit, so could be okay without Caleb for a game. The DeLon Wright thing, I think I keep referencing back to what we said yesterday, but there's going to be games where guys get squeezed. And I think this is a game where the decision was probably he could have went in there and guarded Keontae George. I agree with that because I talked earlier about the point of attack and shell defense being a problem.
Yeah.
I just don't know if Spo wanted to go 10 deep. I thought Highsmith and obviously Caleb Martin was very good tonight. Jaime was very good. Could you have went small without Orlando, who was actually a +4 in his minutes, to give him a little bit of credit? Maybe that's the move, and you put DeLon out there during those minutes, but then you were also getting beat up on the board. So I'm not completely upset that DeLon didn't play, but I do think he could have been a guy you could throw at DeLon thrown at Sexton or Keontae George.
Do you think, Eternal, that they should have done everything? I mean, as I look at the bench, they got good production from Caleb and from Jaquez. And although Haywood Highsmith only had 2 points, that's not why he's really on the court. Would you have done anything differently with Spo's rotations tonight, specifically with the way that the bench rotation specifically? I'm interested to pick your brain there.
Yeah, I thought the bench really didn't get him anything in the first half, which is why you got like so much, Sean, of like the starting unit in the third. Like in the third quarter, you got so much of Terry, Duncan, Nico, and Jimmy. And the only reason Orlando came in was because Bam, had to go out. But those particular guys is what got them started. If anything, I definitely thought since you had such a heavy point guard attack from Utah going into tonight's game plan, you would think that you would have had DeLon playing. I mean, that's what you picked him up for. You needed more consistent dynamic point of attack defense. And I think DeLon has definitely shown it in the games we have seen him in. So I definitely think he could have had some time tonight. I'm probably over to squeeze Haywood for that. So that probably been in, and I, think Nico in some capacity because of that third earned some fourth quarter minutes, but just a little bit of nitpicking.
Yeah, no, and ultimately it's hard, and Sean kind of alluded to this, like to nitpick Spo's rotations in a game where he's seeing things live and trying to probably stick to some defensive principles that maybe some lineups applied. Like, it's tough to play Monday morning quarterback on some of that stuff. Final thoughts from either of you as we kind of close the show here. We know that it was a weird start time to the game. What was as we close the broadcast here for final thoughts, either of you, your thoughts on the kids portion of the broadcast? Sean, I'll go to you first.
Great opportunity for the kids to go out there. Enjoyed it thoroughly. I'll leave it at that. Can I say one thing about the game that we didn't get to? Beginning of the fourth quarter. I don't know where this saying comes from, but it's something that I've heard in coaching for a long time. Pressure makes pipes burst. Beginning of the fourth quarter, there's Caleb Martin free throws. We jump into the 2-2-1 press. Keontae George, being a rookie, being a young guy, dribbles himself right up into the half-court corner, gets trapped, ball goes off of probably Highsmith's foot. They called it off of Keontae George, turnover. I think we went down and scored. Then they broke the press, but they were sped up, missed a shot. We go down, I think we scored again. Then they had another turnover. Like, that momentum shift, even though it was only like 4 to 6 points, was huge. Spo is intelligent in the fact that he doesn't use it from the beginning. You can't do that against NBA guys. He knows that moment that, all right, beginning of the fourth, after the step ball, because it was at the free throw line, you couldn't recover from it. And ultimately, it was probably the momentum shift that happened because it was late in the fourth or early in the fourth quarter that led to a heat run.
I'm glad that you brought us back to earth with that particular point, because it was a big momentum shift. Eternal, your final thoughts, as well as I know you were one that turns off everything because you're quarterbacking on playback, but just your thoughts on giving the kids the opportunity as well as we try to give them a nod on this program.
First and foremost, to all of you out there pursuing any of your dreams of any age, never give up on it. And I think it's beautiful that the Heat organization, which is a very first-class organization amongst any sports organization, having something like this that gives the kids real-world opportunity, kind of shake off those jitterbugs and, give them that type of opportunity to do those type of things. So I think it's great. I, again, wasn't able to listen in because, like Greg said, I am quarterback and playback. So I already got enough going on in my ear and trying to keep in contact with the chat and everything like that. But, as somebody that had done, programs when I was younger, it's dope for them. And also, Greg, Jimmy Butler, 14 straight games of a three.
That's crazy. And Eric Spoelstra, we're getting quotes here. Put him in the 3-point contest next year. I guess that with his percentages, he probably should be. 6 stitches to the mouth for Caleb Martin. That's per Ira Winderman. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't address the media because he couldn't. That makes a ton of sense there. Eternal, your final thoughts on the game?
Hey, it's, what they say is keeping the chains moving. You need these wins. The Heat squandered wins early in the season. We all talked about it, whether on here or on playback. So you have to get these. Beat the bad teams. Beat as many teams as you can so you can get further up the standings. They made a really, really great run last year. You don't want to have to fight out of the mud like that again. So give yourself something, whether that is the 4th seed or at best hopes 3rd seed, but get these wins. So I'm glad they got the win today.
Yep. And we'll see where they land in the standings. I caution everyone as we're like going down the stretch here. Don't look at the standings. Watch how the team's playing, and they will let the chips fall where they may. They can't control anything but getting the victories in front of them. Tonight they did 126-120. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to everyone who tunes in on playback. Thank you. Shout out to Discord. If you haven't signed up on Off the Floor yet, you need to sign up to our Off the Floor Discord. We have so many different chats going on. It is super fun. You can spend all day there, really. I wouldn't necessarily say that that's healthy, but we have enough chats where you could absolutely do that, including host updates. We're doing Q&As and stuff like that. So thank you to everybody for joining us. We didn't take a ton of comments, but we appreciate everybody for always leaning into these live broadcasts as they come to you on impromptu. We appreciate it very much. Peace out.